I am going to ask you about prisons because we've got this story today about Operation Early Dawn, which is so mad that it doesn't make any sense even to mad people. I mean, what are they thinking? They're not going to let out people for bail hearings in case they get remanded in custody because there's no room for them. So they're going to operate a police cell which you can no longer put people in either.
No, the whole thing is...
Bonkers.
Talk about a crisis. I mean, this genuinely is a problem because the state are responsible when they take you into custody.
Right.
You know, they're not meant to treat you like dirt.
No.
It's meant to be a system. You're meant to know what you're doing.
Right.
So now we've got a situation where they're implementing early release, and we're all uncertain about who's going to be released early.
These are people released 70 days early.
Don't worry, they haven't done anything serious, and then you find out they're kind of domestic abusers.
Why are they in prison then?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But so there are, and also, why were they not given a lower tariff? I mean, they're being let out early.
Yes.
We've got that. We've got a situation where people are on parole for ages. Now, think about that.
Right.
You're accused of something, but say you're innocent.
Yes.
Right? Or say you're the victim of somebody and they're guilty.
Right.
It drags on and on and on and on and on.
And you
can be in prison, right? And you can be completely innocent for years. And now you've got a situation where they're saying, oh, we've got a genius idea here. You're taken into a police cell, totally inappropriate for more than one night, and we'll keep you in for a few nights so that'll delay everything. So it's a real kind of delaying tactic.
But the trouble is, and I said this earlier, if you have a police cell which is occupied by somebody for more than, say, one night, what happens when you bring somebody else into the police station who needs to be held overnight in a cell? You've got nowhere to put them.
It's not a logical... You're making it sound as though there should be some logic back. Don't be ridiculous.
It does seem mad, though.
But also, can I just say, because I'm working on this, I'm going to be discussing it next week in the Lords. They've got this a sentence called imprisonment for public protection. And obviously, the public go, oh, I want to be protected from lunatics or people and so on. The problem is it's an indefinite sentence. They doled it out years ago. Blunkett brought it in, David
Blunkett. What sort of people get that then?
Well, it was supposed to be for dangerous people. It ends up being for sort of petty thieves and all the rest of it. They're given a tariff of maybe 2 years, 3 years. They're in indefinitely, forever. And then they knew that was bad, so they abolished it in 2012. Good. Except now there's still 3,000 people inside.
What, who have been there since before 2012?
Exactly, often for the most petty crimes.
That's ridiculous.
They've also got this really ridiculous recall system where you are let out on licence on an IPP and you honestly only have to sneeze or miss an appointment or, you know, have a bit of a row and you're straight back in forever. Now, all I'm saying is, I'm not saying this would solve the prison crisis, but this is an inhumane, ridiculous, punitive, and you know what? They won't do anything about it. The government are making major amendments in this bill I'm doing, but they won't let them out because they're frightened that people like you...
somebody will say...
People like you, they say things like, well, there will be people who will say that we're being soft on crime. And unfortunately, the Labour opposition are also frightened that people will then say you're soft on crime.
Well, of course, the other problem is that if one of these people, of the 3,000 that got released, did something terrible, you would then be blamed for making them let them out.
Except that they've done their time. You do the crime, you do the time, you got a tariff of 3 years, therefore 16 years later on an indefinite... That's ridiculous.
But if they're saying that these are dangerous people, then they must be... the public must be protected from them.
But they're not... Their assessment of how they're dangerous, by the way, is ridiculous because they've done it parole boards and the onus is on the prisoner to prove they're safe. However, to go back to our original story, this will show you how mad it is. You can be an IPP prisoner who's in for stealing bikes and being a bad boy when you were young, next to a rapist. The rapist does their time and is let out.
And gets out.
Often will be let out a lot earlier than their time,
often will rape again.
But the IPP prisoner is not allowed out on the basis that they're dangerous. All I'm saying is there is no logic in the prison system.
There's no logic in the justice system.
In the justice system. And I think when the government say we do everything for public protection, they say that all the time. First of all, justice has to mean as well that if the state is incarcerating you, that you're not let to rot. And it's very tempting because they like to think that people who listen to TalkTV won't give a damn about prisons, doesn't matter what's going on. But it's actually not right that the state can lock you up for crimes made by laws that they pass and then don't do anything humane about it. And I'm not saying, we all know we're not saying lovely time in prison. We are saying you cannot create a situation where there's... In Park Prison in Wales, by the way, 9 people have died in 8 weeks. It's undoubtedly a bad...
There's obviously something wrong.
There's obviously a drugs thing there. They're saying it might be spice. But still, nonetheless, that's an epidemic. There's so much self-harm. It's horrible in prison at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's not good for society because we want to punish. They've got to be locked up.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And you would hope that they would come out of prison wanting to lead a different life.
Exactly.
And try to
Not
be
if you
decent.
destroyed them as a human being inside, right? So you've got to be sensible about these things.
Yeah.
So I'm all for a major reform. And I heard you had a great interview earlier with the prison...
Yeah, the former prison
governor.
Governor, yeah.
She was fabulous.
She is good, yeah.
God, you think, I wish she wasn't former, I wish she was in charge.
I know.
She
probably got fed up with it.
Real voice of common sense in the prison service, so she's left. The thing we've got to do is that because the staff are tearing their hair out as well. A lot of them are very inexperienced. They're actually too many staff shortages. It's all gone horribly wrong. But she made a really good point, which is Labour have brought out a 6-point plan, which is rather odd, not a 5 or a 10.
One more
6.
than Keir.
Well, why not make it 7 and do the prisons? Because actually the justice system needs sorting. Parole is very understaffed.
Yeah.
The big thing for me is probation.
Right.
You come out and you're on licence, you need to have a proper probation service. People are getting lost in the system.
And so much of it is not working. I mean, this is from a quote from Keir Starmer on a report from HM's Chief Inspector of Prisons about Lewis Prison. A high-risk prisoner had his release date brought forward under the ECSL scheme, despite having a history of stalking, domestic abuse and being subject to a restraining order.
Yes. Well, this is why I don't quite believe when the government say, oh, we're doing early release, but don't worry, they're not dangerous. And then actually it is to Keir Starmer's credit that he's drawn attention to this. There's been a couple of reports where people have said, actually, the people we've been asked to release early are not exactly like your next-door neighbour best friend. And the main thing is, I'm not trying to be particularly liberal, but I think that a humane society, you know, like when you hear about those authoritarian regimes, where they lock you up and you never hear of you again, right? The whole point about being in a democracy is not that you run some sort of namby-pamby soft thing, but that you actually have a properly run prison service, because actually that will protect the public in the long term.
Well, it will.
Some people might just have the chance of coming out reformed. We did this thing where we did Debating Matters, which one of the projects I'm involved in. We did it Debating Matters Beyond Bars. We got them arguing. And the prisoners said, oh, this is great. It's like pugilism. Argument, but without the fist.
But without the fist. Well, exactly
one of the prison governors said to us, oh, it's amazing. They're all having big rows over the dinner table because of you. And I thought, oh, God. And he said, oh, whether we should pay for manned space travel. It's taken off as a debate because it was one of the debating topics. Well, that's what we need more of.
Of course.
A bit of intellectual stimulation so they don't turn to drugs because they're bored out their heads because they're locked up for 23 hours.
Well, here's an idea. How about you don't let them get drugs in prison?
Yeah, well, that's the other thing.
How about that for an idea?
They're not doing enough to clamp down on that either. But anyway, the main thing is the government are not taking this seriously. The solution is not to just let people out early. The solution should have been, and should be for Labour in the future, build more prisons, staff them adequately, and ensure that they have proper educational programmes, not to entertain people, so that there's a chance that these people who might have gone wrong, but don't we believe it, you do your time, you come out, you're innocent then.
And
we've got to give a chance. You've learned, you've been rehabilitated.
Exactly. The other thing that people keep pointing out to me is that I think there's something like 11 or 12,000 prisoners in our prisons who are from other countries. And why not let them out early and send them all home, deport them? What's wrong with that idea?
Mike, again, you've lost the plot there. You've lost the plot because obviously the whole prospect, I can't get over it. I mean, this is not a prison thing, but I cannot get over the fact that they assess you for asylum. It's really easy to get asylum status in this country, but there are a small minority who don't. But then they can stay.
Yeah, well, they all stay.
So that's what I'm saying is, so the idea of deporting anyone, it seems to me to be an anathema to the system.
Well, a lot of them are Albanian, and apparently we have the ability to deport them to Albania, so we should certainly do that.
But if you don't get the asylum set... So anyway, you're absolutely right. If they're incarcerated in prison and they're a foreign national, there is no reason why they could not be returned to their home of their nationality.
No reason.
However, there is a reluctance, it seems to me, to do anything sensible when it comes to these issues.
Yeah, I know. Perfectly commonsensical conversation, this is.
I know.
You know, this is the only place to get it. You know that, don't you?
Yeah.
There's nowhere else.
Well, I really believe that a lot of prison officers and a lot of people who work in the prison service are commonsensical types.
They are.
Right?
Well,
actually, a lot of ex-prisoners are, and they'd have a good... I think they should talk to them. Stop talking to the big NGOs and getting stakeholders in. Talk to some normal people, and I bet you'd solve a bit of this.
You would. We'd solve everything else. Claire, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Director of the Academy of Ideas. Love to see you. Love to see you again soon.